Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Wishmaster 2 Evil Never Dies from 1999. And this is where the series kind of starts to lose the quality. Um, the first one was released in theaters, and 2, 3, and 4 were released direct to DVD. This one's not that bad. At least it still has the original actor who played the Wishmaster and Nathaniel Demarest. However, after watching it last night, I thought, man, this movie's not very good. But then when I watched Wishmaster 3, I was begging for Wishmaster 2. So they definitely get worse, but this movie does have the original guy, and that helps it tremendously because he is awesome in this role. But it starts off in a museum, and you see the statue of the Wishmaster, the statue that held the gem from the first movie. And the museum's getting robbed, and you see these three burglars, and they're stealing, pictures and artifacts and all that crap. And the security guards come in when one of them sets off the alarm. They start to get into kind of a shootout with the security guards, and a statue gets broken, and you see the gemstone. One of the burglars grabs the gemstone, and one of the burglars gets shot, so the other two, they take off and they run. Well, they're running down the stairs, and security guards meet them at the bottom, and they start shooting again, and one of them shoots the girl, and her boyfriend kills the security guards. And he's looking at her, and he says, "Are you okay?" And she says, "Yeah, this gemstone stopped the bullet." She takes it out, and it starts to burn her hand, and she drops it, and it splits into two. So she's the waker. Um, her boyfriend, another security guard, runs up and kills her boyfriend, and she's freaking out, and she shoots the security guard in retaliation, and she's staring at him, and he says, just go, just get out of here, save yourself. She doesn't want to, she's resisting, but eventually she gives in, and she sneaks out the back as the police, arrive at the museum. So while this guy's laying here dying, the gym starts to shake, and this like weird goo stuff comes out. And this movie didn't have exactly like as good of effects as the first one, but they were pretty close. So this movie, like I said, was not that bad, especially compared to the later movies in the series. This one is great compared to those. But it starts to glow, and like this tentacle thing shoots out into the wall, and all of a sudden the wall kind of takes the form of a face, and a face kind of peeks through this hole, and the Wishmaster crawls out. And he tells the guy, I can grant you everlasting life or immortality, anything you want. And the guy says, well, I just wish I was never born. So the Wishmaster just kind of reverts him back, and you see him go from like adult to child to baby to like fetus, and then he's just erased completely. So it gives the Wishmaster enough strength to take his original form, and he turns back into Nathaniel from the first movie. So the police enter the museum. One of them runs up and says, "Freeze." And the Wishmaster says, "Is that what you want?" And the guy says, "Freeze" again. So he freezes him and just turns him into ice. Some other cops come, and they take him, and he basically just surrenders. So the Wishmaster is taken to jail. And he's in the jail, and this guy basically he's being harassed by the other criminals, and they're picking on him and calling him all these names and stuff. And this one guy wants his shoes, and he, tells him he can grant wishes, and the guy kind of plays along and says, "All right, well, I want to walk through those bars out of the jail." So, of course, what's going to happen, the Wishmaster shoves him into the bars and just forces his body through it, so he breaks and he starts bleeding all over the place, and all the other criminals are like crying, and Wishmaster just shoves him through the bars, and he lands in like just a ball of skin, it looks like, but it's a pretty cool scene. Um, the only thing is, he didn't really answer the wish because the guy said he wanted to walk through the bars and out of the jail. I guess technically he's going to be taken out of the jail now in a body bag, but in reality, he was not taken from. He did not walk out the jail like he asked. So that's I don't know. I just kind of thought that was funny. Morgana's back at the apartment. She's crying about her boyfriend Eric, and she sees Nathaniel Demarest on TV taking the rap. He's confessed to everything, all the murders, the robbery, and she starts to think about the guard. And they show the guard she killed, his family, and she starts crying about it. So the next day she goes to church because she wants answers on everything that's happened. She sees this guy Gregory, who's a priest, who apparently they dated in the past, and she tells him Eric was killed, and he says, well, he wasn't right for you anyway. And he starts to tell her that, God, stuff about God, and she says she didn't want to hear a sermon, she just wanted answers. And she gets mad and leaves. But back at the prison, the Wishmaster is, now been put in prison, which is great because he can get a lot of souls. So he really just wanted to go. And he hears these two criminals talking, and one says, he got a bad rap, and he should have been, set free, but the lawyer sucked, and his lawyer can go fuck himself. And Wishmaster overhears this and goes and says, I can take care of the lawyer for you. I mean, you've been falsely imprisoned. I just want to help you. And they kind of go back and forth, but eventually he just agrees and says, all right, make it happen. Well, Debo from the Friday movies, Tiny Lister Jr., is a prison guard in this movie. So Debo comes and he takes the prisoner, and he's got a meeting with his lawyer. So he goes and sits in the room with his lawyer, and his lawyer says, I think I got all the charges dropped. I can get all these charges dropped. I got connections with the police and the judges. I think I can get you out of here. But before he can sign the papers, his legs kind of bend back, and he starts to basically fuck himself. And the prisoner starts to freak out and calls in the guard and says, guard, what's, something's going on with this guy. And then he starts screaming, what about my case? What about my case? So he basically got screwed by the Wishmaster here. But it was pretty cool. Then, it was goofy, but, Then Morgana is back at the apartment. And she's trying to find out what's going on, who this Demarest guy is. She's been having visions of all the people he's been killing off, and she starts to look up some mythology on a website. And this is 1999, but this website looks like it was 93. Like, it is bad looking. But, just you gotta go with it. So, Demarest is in prison, and he's, being harassed by this giant muscle bully guy and these two Asian twins who do kung fu, who are like his bodyguards. And they're threatening him, saying, don't be doing business on my property and all that crap. And the Wishmaster just smiles at him, and that's it. So Gregory comes over to see Morgana, and she tells him about the robbery. She finally confesses everything to him. And at first he tells her to go to the police, but she says, I'm having these horrible dreams about this guy who they arrested for the crimes who wasn't even there. So he tells her, well, you got to do something because there's an innocent man in prison because of this. And she says, well, I'm going to go see him and try and get some answers. So she's on her way to the prison to meet the Wishmaster. And in the prison, Nathaniel Demarest is talking to this Russian guy named Osip. And he comes up and says, I hear that you're the devil, and that you give people what they want in exchange for souls. And I don't care if you're the devil or not. So he basically already accepts the fact, and the Wishmaster's happy. He's like, finally, someone who understands what's going on here. Just tell me what you want. But the Russian guy says, I want 2 wishes. And I can help you out because even the devil needs help. And the Wishmaster is thinking about it, and he says, we'll see. And Debo comes and takes him and says, you have a visitor. So the Wishmaster goes, and he's meeting Morgana. and she's sitting on the other side of the glass with a telephone, and he comes in, and he's kind of being all cryptic with her, and he says, you're going to fulfill the prophecy, and you'll know what the prophecy is when the time is right. She asks him about the robbery and Eric, and he says Eric is no longer with us. Um, just stuff like that, basically. For like earlier on, she's talking to Gregory, and she kind of mentions that she can't find any information about Eric, the guy who shot her boyfriend, and she didn't even know if he's dead because he asked if he was never born, so he's basically erased from history. So at least they tied up that loose end, because I thought for a second like that would never get mentioned again. But here, when Demarest says Eric is no longer with us, that kind of closed that whole little story. So then she sees a flash of him as the Djinn and who he really is, and she gets freaked out and leaves. Um, Back in the laundry room, the Wishmaster is granting wishes to other prisoners, and the muscle guy and the Asians walk up, and they think he's trading drugs or getting drugs or something, and they ask for their rent. Wishmaster hands him some money because he doesn't even care about that type of stuff, and the guy says, "No, I want your drugs. I want to get wasted." And he basically grants him a wish that he'll get wasted, and he has the two Asian guys. He takes over control of their bodies, and they just start kicking the crap out of this muscle guy. They beat him to death. Debo comes. He says, "I'm tired of seeing you around here, Demarest, anytime there's trouble," and he throws him in the hole. Demarest doesn't even care. He says, "I've been in a hole for 3,000 years," and he just does the smile he always does, which is great. I mean, this guy is a really good Wishmaster. He's awesome at this role. So Morgana goes back home, and she's telling Gregory about the Djinn, and he doesn't believe her. And he says, he's going to go meet Demarest himself. So Gregory goes to meet with Nathaniel Demarest in prison, and he sits down, and Demarest tells him stuff about their ex, about how him and Morgana used to be an item, and they went out and all this stuff and had a relationship, stuff he couldn't possibly know. And then he copies Morgana's voice, which really freaks Gregory out. So he believes her after this, and he goes home and he gets some books on the Djinn, and he's telling her that, according to the legend, that the Djinn needs 1,001 souls to power up the gemstone. And once he has the power, then he grants 3 wishes to the Waker, and then once the 3rd wish is granted, all the Djinn come to Earth and can take over. So it also says that only a person pure of heart can defeat the Djinn. So Morgana, kind of that night, she has a makeover. She takes out her nose ring, fixes her hair, starts dressing, like she's going to church, and she actually cuts off one of her fingers, I guess to, offer as a sacrifice for what she's done killing the guard's family, or killing the guard who had a family. So she feels horrible about what she did already, but now she's trying to make herself pure of heart so that she can kill the Djinn, because that's the only person who can stop him. Nathaniel is sitting outside at the prison talking to Ossip, and they're playing chess, and he's getting impatient because he says he's not getting enough souls here. So he tells Ossip to make his wish, and they can just walk out of the prison. But Debo comes up, and he starts threatening Demarest and saying stuff like, "Man, I wish I could slow dance with you Compton style." So the Wishmaster takes him to some kind of weird room, and you don't really see what happens. He just says, "Let's dance," and all of a sudden you see Debo walk out and come up to Ossip, and he's speaking with Nathaniel Demarest's voice, but he's in Debo's body. So Ossip is really impressed, and he makes his wish, and he says, "Let's get out of here," and they escape from prison. So Gregory and Morgana are reading the paper, and they're trying to find out information about them escaping from prison and where they can find them and try and stop them. And there's this Russian club, and Ossip and Demarest are there, and he's really drunk, and he's telling all his friends that this guy's the devil. He can give you anything you want, And then all of a sudden, the big boss of the club, like the mafia boss, comes in. This Russian guy named Pushkin, and he basically talks some shit to Osip, and he gets mad and says, "I want to be the boss." And he asks Demarest for a second wish, and Demarest says, "I'm sorry. There's rules even I can't break." So he comes up with an idea, and he says that he's gonna try and get Pushkin to make a wish that'll eliminate himself, so Osip can take over and become the big boss. So he goes to Pushkin, but Pushkin says, "I've already got fame, or I don't need fame. I've already got money and power, so there's nothing you can offer me." And Osip mentions this guy Mustafa, and Pushkin goes crazy. He says, "I told you never to mention his name to me again." And he talks about how his friend Demarest here can get to Mustafa. So Pushkin says, "All right, bring me his head, or give me his head." And all of a sudden, his head disappears, and it's Mustafa's head. It's some new guy. And all the guards, or all his bodyguard mafia friends, are pointing their guns at him, and he's freaking out and running all over the club, and Osip just basically says, "Okay, I'm in charge now." I know it doesn't really make any sense, but that's what happens. So the guy's still alive, but now Osip is in charge. So Osip has what he wants, but Demarest is still mad. And Osip says, "What's wrong?" And he says, "I've only got 800 souls." So Osip says, "Well, I know a place you can get more." Meanwhile, Morgana bursts into the club. They've tracked down Osip. She shoots Demarest. He just laughs at her. He says she can't kill him. She doesn't have the power to kill him. And I'll offer you a free wish. She refuses the free wish. I guess they're allowed to offer free wishes to Wakers because he said there's rules I can't break, so he couldn't give Osip 2 wishes, but he can give a free wish to the Waker, I guess. I don't know, I thought that was kind of strange, but I suppose if they did it in the first movie, they did it here, maybe there's some kind of rule where they're allowed to offer a free wish to a Waker. But she leaves the club, she doesn't accept the wish, and she goes back to Gregory, and she says, "Because of the guard I killed, I can never be pure-hearted." And he tells her that God can help you, and he can, forgive you for anything. And they go back to the club together, but this time the Wishmaster is gone. And Osip's sitting there, and he doesn't want to tell him where the Wishmaster went. And they basically convince him by saying, he's just going to destroy the world. And if you don't help us, he's going to destroy your soul too. So he says, "Well, I can save the world if I just kill you before you make the wishes." So he shoots Morgana, but the bullet holes close up and she's healed. And the Wishmaster's protecting her. She can't be killed. So it doesn't work, and then he tells them that he needs 800 more souls, but he sent him to Las Vegas. So it's not going to take him much longer. So we see Nathaniel Demarest in Vegas, and he's pretending to be a casino operator, and he's talking to the manager, and he's showing him around the club. And we see Morgana back at her apartment, and she gets a phone call from Osip telling her he bought, her tickets to Vegas, and they're waiting at the airport. "Please go, stop Demarest. You have to stop him." So she says, "All right, I'll go." And then we see that it was really Nathaniel Demarest making the phone call. He's just mimicking Osip's voice. So her and Gregory, they're talking again, and they're deciding about going to Vegas, and Gregory has a new spell he found that's supposedly what the original sorcerer used to trap the djinn. And she doesn't really believe it'll work, but he says this is all we have, and then they have sex, and then they go to Vegas. So they cut back to the casino, and everyone is winning. All these people are winning tons and tons of money. There's people trying to get into this casino, and the Wishmaster's just granting wishes left and right here. The Wishmaster finally gets all the souls he needs, and he summons all the people who have made wishes, and then you just see people in the casino like falling into comas. body bags being carried out of the casino. Like all these souls are going into the gym. So Morgana and Gregory, they run into Demarest's office, and she just wishes that he was gone forever. But he says, he can't do that. He just comes right back and says it doesn't, you can't wish for something like that. So she wishes that he'll go back into the gemstone. And he says, since I'm the Wishmaster, wishes pertaining to me are prevented. You can't do that. So Gregory grabs the stone off the desk, and he tries the spell, but it doesn't work. And Gregory just says, I wish you would be sent back to hell. And Demarest kind of turns him into Jesus, and he's being like burned and all this stuff. And then Morgana gets these holes in her hands like stigmata. It gets really weird here, but he says, you can end his pain if you'll just wish for it. And she wishes that Gregory gets released, and the Wishmaster takes that as meaning released, because death is a release. So he kills Gregory, and Morgana's just freaking out about it. She wishes that there would be no evil in the world, but the Wishmaster says that evil is the half of a perfect sphere, so she can't wish for that either. And he says, I'm getting really tired and impatient. He zaps them, and they both appear back in the casino where everyone's going crazy. And he tricks the casino owner into wishing that this nightmare in his casino would come to an end. Morgana tries to stop him, but the guy wishes that the nightmare would come to an end, and then the casino just goes freaking crazy. This is where stuff gets really goofy. One of the roulette tables starts to come alive, and these spikes come out of it, and it starts to run people over. Playing cards get thrown in people's faces. Chips start to kill people. Frogs and locusts appear. The locust, oh my god, the graphics in this movie for the locust, bad times. I mean, it was not good. It looked horrible. And this one lady, she is playing craps or something, and the Wishmaster, he says something about you're all crapped out, and then she starts to just shit gold coins. It was goofy, just very, very goofy. And he tells Morgana, you have 2 wishes, you can make all this stop. She remembers the spell and the prophecy, and she starts to think about a plan, and she says, okay, bring back the guard I killed. So the Wishmaster grants her the wish, and the security guard that she killed is brought back to life, and you kind of see this like black and white clip of him going home and meeting his family. I guess it was a vision for her. And so now she can be pure-hearted again. So she grabs the stone in the Wishmaster's hand, and she starts screaming the spell, and she keeps saying it over and over again. It causes all the souls he's taken to fly out of the Wishmaster. They go back to their original bodies. The Wishmaster gets sucked back into the stone, and Gregory comes back to life. Morgana is hugging Gregory in the casino, and the last thing we see is the Wishmaster trapped back in the gemstone. So that's Wishmaster 2. Like I said, this one was a little bit goofier than the first one, but it was still a decent movie. And compared to the others, the first 2 are amazing. This is the last time we see the original guy play the Djinn and Nathaniel Demarest. So the original Wishmaster is gone after the first 2 movies, and it really, really hurts 3 and 4. So I will be back with Wishmaster 3. Let me see what it says. Beyond the Gates of Hell. And it is horrible. It is a horrible, horrible movie. I really don't like this one. It's the worst of all 4 Wishmasters. And I will be back with my review of that later on. So thank you for listening, and check out the next video, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.